Tax season 2026 might be pretty rough. I've got some breaking news here that I just found out about, and the IRS commissioner just mentioned this 2 days ago on July 28th at the National Association of Enrolled Agents Tax Summit. So maybe you were there, maybe you heard this, but tax season is going to start later in 2026 than I think it has ever started before. Now, as a tax firm owner, what should you do about this? All right, I've got a couple of tips here, but first let's look at what the commissioner actually said. IRS commissioner predicts the upcoming filing season will begin around President's Day. The upcoming tax filing season is expected to get off to a late start, with the IRS aiming to begin to accept returns somewhere around President's Day, February 17th. Now, this is a typo. It says 2025, but they'll fix that. This is February 17th, 2026. This was just posted July 29th by 2025. This is current federal tax developments by Ed Zollers. And if you're not familiar with this is a great free resource to get some federal tax updates. So currentfederaltaxdevelopments.com, you can sign up here and get their email updates. I just got this in my email inbox today, but a late start, February 17th, 2026, per a statement made by IRS Commissioner Billy Long at the National Association of Enrolled Agents Tax Summit on July 28th, 2025. And here's the source for that. So what does this mean for you as a tax firm owner? All right, tax season filing usually starts somewhere around January 20th. And even then, depending on the type of clients you have, you may have people come in before then, and you've been prepping returns and holding them until the IRS accepts returns around mid to late January. Well, now, because of the new tax bill, it doesn't say that in this very short update, but you know this is due to the OB3 new tax law, because there are a significant amount of changes. They're going to have to rework tax return forms. They're going to have to rework probably the main 1040. They're going to have to add additional tax forms. There's a lot of calculations. There's a lot of interplay between some of these new tax laws. So they already, just think about this. Usually we get tax laws passed. The most recent ones have passed late in the year, and we've had some delayed start to tax filing season into late January. But this bill passed in the middle of the year. We got it in July. And they're still kind of setting expectations here that filing isn't going to start until the middle of February. So you have a tax season that is 3 months long, the middle of January to the middle of February, March, April. You've got a 3-month long season, and they just delayed the start of that by 1 month. That is a third of your time gone. Now, will you be able to prep returns and hold them until the IRS starts accepting them? Maybe. If the IRS isn't going to be ready, do you really think that your tax software is going to be? If the IRS hasn't approved forms, your tax software is going to be working on it. They're going to be getting the drafts in there and everything like that, but they're not going to be able to be ready to go if the IRS hasn't finalized forms. So maybe you'll be able to prep some of these and sit on them. Maybe you won't. You just lost 33%, a third of your time. Now, depending on how you run your firm, this could be huge. If you're trying to crank out as many returns as you can during tax season, that is going to sting. What should you expect? I think there are 3 main expectations in terms of the industry, what you should expect. With this news and with the tax bill, I already thought this when the tax bill came out, when the law passed. I was already kind of predicting this. And now with this announcement, I'm doubling down on this prediction. Tax preparers close to retirement will go ahead and enter retirement. Other tax preparers who have been frustrated and thinking about switching into a different career or to a different accounting role, they're going to go ahead and make that jump. They're not going to wait around for what is probably going to be a pretty rough tax season. The second thing, there are going to be some people who stick it out. They go through next tax season and it just goes horrible and they're miserable and it's the last straw and they jump and they quit. They retire early. They go ahead and jump to another industry. Those two things are going to happen. A mass exodus of people leaving tax compliance work right now before this happens in 2026, before this tax season happens, and a wave right after because they finally just have had it and they don't quite have time to plan for the exit right now, so they're going to make it through one more tax season, and then they're going to start planning now, and they're going to exit after next tax season. You're also going to have plenty of people just leaving compliance work for like advisory work. That's already happening in mass waves. So that's what's going to happen. What does that mean? Does that mean you should follow? I don't think so. Now, I think you might need to tweak your practice, or maybe you're already set up in a great spot for this to really not harm you. The first thing, extensions are a normal part of tax compliance. We should have been doing this all along, but this is even more reason to set expectations and to help your clients understand that extensions are not scary. They don't raise red flags with the IRS. Extensions are a normal part of tax compliance. There's a 3-month window to file everyone's tax return. That's not, if you're doing mostly tax compliance, that's 80 to 90 to 100% of your work in 25% of the year. Nobody does that. Now, helping your clients understand this and to set expectations, again, it's not something that's going to raise red flags. It actually, in many situations, is preferred to file an extension. And so just continue to communicate, set expectations, communicate well with your clients. Start right now. Hey, we just found out. I'm about to do a video for my clients. We just found out that tax season is not going to start until mid-February, a month later than it normally does. So just be ready for next season to be a little bit different and for there to be a lot more extensions. But don't worry about that because extensions have always been and will always continue to be a normal part of this. If you've been worried about extensions or think they raised red flags, those are myths. That's not true. And I want to, help to dispel that myth and give you peace of mind. And so start to communicate that. The next thing, demand for tax compliance, for tax preparers is strong. It's as strong as it ever has been. With the talk of AI and with TurboTax running their ads and everything, I started in 2008. Nobody was really talking about, is tax compliance dead back in 2008. It was just as strong then as it had been in the 90s and the 80s. Maybe stronger. Taxes actually keep getting more complex. This tax bill is more complex. There's more things to miss and to overlook and to understand. So it's continuing to get more complex. AI is not ready. TurboTax is fine for some people. DIY is fine for some people, but there's plenty of people who won't and can't DIY. There's plenty of people who can and just don't want to. So the compliance industry is very strong. Demand is high. It's as high as it ever has been. And yet the preparers are leaving in droves. The complexity, COVID, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the Advanced Child Tax Credit, the stimulus payments, the premium tax credit, all the changes that have happened in the last decade have driven preparers out of this industry. So should you follow? Well, I don't think so. This is still possible. And you can run your firm in a better way. You can serve a few less clients. You can charge higher fees. Again, demand is strong. Supply of quality preparers is low. When demand is high and supply is low, prices need to rise because of that. That is basic economics 101. I only took Econ 101. I didn't really care for economics that much, the theory and everything there. I only took one class. But everyone knows that when demand goes up and supply goes down, prices have to go up. So you do need to prepare for this. You cannot go into 2026 charging the same thing you did in 2025. You certainly can't go into 2026 charging the same thing that you did in 2015 or 2005 or good grief, 1995. There are still people out there charging 1995 rates for basic tax prep. And that's not where we're at. Just with simple inflation, you need to increase that. But now we've got the increased complexity, we've got a shortened time frame, and we've got preparers leaving for advisory work or just leaving the industry altogether, or boomers with retirees just hitting their normal retirement age, much less the ones who are saying, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and retire early because this is getting crazy. If you're willing to do what no one else is willing to do, you need to charge appropriately. And people are no longer willing. A large amount of people are no longer willing to do tax preparation, tax compliance work. If you're still willing to do this, there are people out there who need you, who want you, who desperately want you because they are struggling to find someone willing to do this work. And if they can't find someone willing to do this, then the fee should be higher. Now, I have not ever been one to really argue for raise your fees, raise your fees, raise your fees. That is not something that I typically talk about a lot. I always tell people, it's fine to start with low fees. I'm not worried about you charging too low of a fee. If you're willing to work for that, it's a great way to build up a foundation that will pay your bills and then help you to take on the clients that you want to. Like that is perfectly reasonable. It's honorable. There's no shame in that. I did that. I started with pretty low fees and I've increased them as my client base grew, as the demand grew for me individually, but demand is going up for the industry as a whole. So if you're still in that spot where you're launching out, where you're starting, just launching, you can start down there. That's fine. Don't start too high either. I think that there's actually more risk in starting too high. Because if you start too high and you don't quite have the reputation yet, and you don't have the reviews yet, and you don't have the client testimonies yet, then there's a lot of trust they have to put the taxpayers have to put in you. And if they don't do that and you start too high, you're going to run the risk that you don't sign up enough clients to pay your bills to stay in this business. So I actually think that that's riskier. You can start with some lower fees, but still reasonable. I mean, don't go crazy. Don't be doing $50 tax returns for people. But start with lower fees on the lower side. Get your bills paid, and then start to raise your fees on newer clients and then on returning clients, and work your way into this where you've got that solid base. All right, that's enough of that. So I think this is a great time to stay in tax compliance work. I think it's a great time to enter tax compliance work because, again, if you're willing to do what no one else is willing to do, you can charge for that. You can charge a healthy fee for that. You should be doing that. You need to communicate with your clients early and often and frequently. Set expectations. Help them to understand that extensions are a normal part of this. Don't try to cram in 2 months what you've been doing in 3. Rework your process. You need to understand that extensions are a normal part of the tax process too. And go into next tax season planning for it to be a great tax season. Plan for this now. Don't be reactive, be proactive. It's a great time to be in tax compliance work. My name is Brad. I help coach other tax firm owners who are launching or growing their tax businesses. Check out my website. It's linked below. I appreciate you watching.